All right. Cool, guys. Well, thanks for jumping on. Just quickly, it's probably not an ideal time for other people around the world because it's 9 a.m. here in Australia. So it's probably some unruly hour overseas. But what I wanted to do was just do a quick intro into Stager, just so that you can see actually how easy the program is to use. And just get some ideas about what you can possibly build for this challenge. Really, the challenge is using the default sort of setup within Stager. And I'm just gonna firstly, I just want to go to where you can actually download it for free. Download the trial, not for free. I'm going to put this into the chat just in case people can't find it, and we can. I'm going to put that in chat. And it's a bit, because you get to this page and you're like, download, where's the trial? You actually have to scroll down to the bottom of the page a little bit to see the trial. I don't know why there's not like a trial button or something up here that make it a little bit more obvious. But if you scroll down that page, you'll see there, and you've got the various apps where you can start your free trial. You just click on that. And I guess, I'm not too sure because I've got an Adobe account, but if you haven't got an Adobe account, I guess you have to register one and go through that palaver to be able to download that free trial. I would probably recommend if you're keen to learn some of the other apps as well, then download some of the, the other ones, Painter and Sampler at the same time. Now, the other cool place that I wanted to take you to is this one here, which is the documentation around each of the apps. So if I go up the top here again, I'm going to just paste this into the chat if you need it. But the documentation is actually really, really good for each of the apps. And you can see here that up the top, you've got your different applications. And once I click into Stager, I get to this page. And if you're curious about what the spec is that you need for your to be able to run Stager, then you can come in here and it specs things out, whether you're on a Mac or a Windows PC or whatever it is. So it's just a really good resource to be able to come in and check things out. And it has, like I said, really good documentation, just understanding what the models are, the basic sort of models. You've got parametric models in there, and it's not pages and pages. It's just a really good insight into the different features within Stager. So I recommend that you just spend a little bit of time just to come in and check things out. Really, it's quick. If you've played with Substance Painter before, then it's not too dissimilar to that in terms of just being able to drag and drop materials and play with parameters. But yeah, it's a good breakdown of all the features within Stager. And like I said, if you're interested in any of the other apps, then it's exactly the same sort of documentation for them as well. The other area is the tutorials, the online tutorials that they have. Substance, or the Substance guys have done an amazing job with the Substance Academy, and there's various levels of training in here. So really good area to come up to speed with the Substance apps in general. But there's one there, obviously for Stager as well, and I recommend you watch that. I think it's only like 20 minutes long. And again, you've got project files here that you can download, and really just follow along with that. And it's you'll pretty much have everything sort of covered if you were to do that. Also, if you're new to 3D, they have these Start 3D series videos, which are really good for each of the various disciplines to be able to understand, what's going on, for modeling, material, texturing, and so forth. So again, if you're looking at sort of rendering and staging, then I recommend watching this as a sort of a base level. And if you're a bit more technical and you want to dive into the sort of the technical engine behind all this, they have this PBR, which is physically based rendering, which is a constant theme all the way through the apps. And that this guide by Wes just breaks it down in layman's terms so that it's really, really easy to understand. But again, it's just understanding how light and materials react and stuff like that. This is a bit more of a science degree to understand, or not really, because it's broken down quite nicely with images and stuff like that, but just yeah, he's done a fantastic job of just being able to talk about materials and the way that lights react to it. So yeah, some good online stuff there for you to access pretty much straight away once you've downloaded the app. Now, if we just jump straight into Stager, you can see here I've launched it from my desktop. You get to this point. I'm just going to go create new to start with, and what I'm going to do here is basically the challenge is, like I said before, is using the assets, default assets that ship with Stager to be able to create some sort of, like, whether it's an environment or just some sort of interesting photorealistic render, right? So if I was to think about something like that, then, you know, I would start with some basic building blocks and, you know, just start building out. So for example, something like this, maybe I just change the, and with each of the sort of objects, you know, you're presented with your properties palette, like nothing different in that you would find in any other sort of 3D program. And maybe I'd make that sort of 600 by, actually I'll just do the transform and I'll just change the scale to say 600. So hit F just frames as you would find in Painter or in a Maya or whatever it is. So I'm just using this as a sort of a base ground. And then, you know, you can go in and start playing with some of these models, right? And some of these are parametric models. So if I just drag and drop this guy here, and actually what I might do is just, before I do that, I'm going to go up to the side toolbar here. And at the top, we've got the select. And if I just click and hold on that, you can see we've got snapping and we've got collision and partial and group selection and things like that. These are really useful selection modes for being able to, you know, group select or partial select. So I like to just make sure that I've got snapping on, and I'm going to just, yeah, make sure that, you know, when I'm dragging things around, it's actually sticking to the surface. So I'm going to grab something like this. I'm going to just drop it straight down. Again, if I hit F, we've got a door there. It's pretty small. So I want to scale that up. Scale is, you know, is your shortcut keys are W, E, R, and, you know, that's the same as what you would sort of find in most 3D softwares. Now, if I wanted to scale something like this, I'd hit R. And then if I just hold down Shift and grab this middle arm, for example, I can then scale it up and universally, and it's going to scale. If I just hold that down, I will do it. Actually, I don't need to hold Shift for that. I can just do it that way as well. So maybe I'm going to position this. I hit W. I'm going to just snap it back to there, and you can see how you get that sort of blue highlight when it gets to the edge, which is really nice because, you know, you don't have to sit here on the side profile and try and line up your geometry. It does some really nice things in terms of alignment and snapping for you. So once I'm, you know, I've got my sort of my door frame here, if I go into the object, you can see now, if I just pull that out a little bit, you can see here that I've presented with a bunch of parameters. So this is kind of what you would find in Substance materials, where you can sit there and use sliders to be able to adjust your material. It's exactly the same sort of principle for these parametric models. So, you know, I can change the wall height and go up and down. If I just frame that again, scale out a bit. So, you know, I can do all this sort of stuff, and really, if I wanted to add more door frames, that I can do something like that. Maybe I want to add a bevel or whatever it is, you know, I can sit there and change based off the requirement that I'm looking for. So I might do something like that, and I'm going to just use these instead of doorways. I'm going to use them as windows. So the next thing I'm going to do is, again, I might go through and I'm just like, oh, you know what, I might just do a search and start playing around with, you know, different models. So again, I'm going to drag and drop this modeling asset onto this, my ground plane. I got R again, maybe I'll scale that up to something like that. And you know, all I'm doing here is what the name suggests. I'm staging my 3D assets, and I'm just going to go through and use models that are part of this. I might grab that lamp as well. So if I do that, see, I'm just going to scale that down because I think I made that too. Did I make that too big? Maybe I'll make that, instead of 600, I'll make that 60 because it feels like everything's coming out at a very small scale. I wanted to keep that. So if you can see that there's that little padlock at the top. Now, if I wanted to rescale both and all the axes, then, oh, what's going on there? That's supposed to do all of it. Oh, there you go. Sorry. Double click on that. It's weird how it went 59.9, but anyway, so I might just try that again because that scale is just a little bit whacked, and I think I made it 600 instead of 60. So let's just try that again. So if I've got my plane, I'm just going to come through, hit F, bring that down, bring my table, and yeah, that feels better. Just wanted to make sure that the scale was a little bit, and then I can bring my, again, bring my lamp down, and I've got something like that. So again, I can just group select the stuff if I need to be able to position it. And I'm going to position that against the wall. I'll go through, I can do that wall again. So which was, if I just come down, I can grab that guy. And you can see I'm getting that. Again, I'm going to go back into object. I'm going to change that to say 3 or 4. I'm going to move that to that back section, and I'm going to change my wall depth, wall width, that guy there. Maybe I don't want that so large, so I'll just bring that back in a little bit as well. Whoops. So I got something like that. I'm just building this up. And if I wanted to, you know what, I could sit here and just tweak that a little bit as well, go a little bit wider and position that. Grab that floor, duplicate that, rotate that, and spin that up that way, and hold down Shift and it'll snap to the 90 degree, the same as what you'd find in Substance Painter. Move that to the side. Again, you know, it's like visual effects. You just kind of creating that that shell. Actually, I wanted something scale with that. Is that in scale? Is nothing. World object. Cool. So I'm just doing something like that, just quickly going through and creating my base environment here. Again, I could duplicate that, bring that across, snap it, and all I'm doing is just really just trying to create that shell. I could create a roof if I wanted to at this point. You know, I'm still going to just keep adding some 3D assets that I've got here just to build out this scene, right? So, you know, again, just finding assets that I could possibly use. So if I wanted to use a chair, and you can see you've got that little blue square, which again shows that I'm snapping to the floor. So I can rotate that round. Again, maybe I'm looking for lights. Oh, actually, I just want to go back into my models, close that. And what else have we got? We've got sort of a big lamp, so we can throw that down. So I'm just quickly building stuff out here, and when I get to, you know, the texturing stage, then I'm going to go through and just, you know, use all my available materials to be able to then texture that out. But each of these materials, there's, you know, lots of parameters that I can change to kind of make it unique as well. So I'm going through, maybe I want to add something like a, I guess like a notebook or something. See if there's something here. I can drag and drop this out and just start really just adding, all these assets that are part of the library. See if we've got a pen, and drag that down as well. Got my lamp, going to reposition that back over there, just rotate that round. Maybe there's some, books. Start just throwing this stuff down, right? So, so really, I'm just, this is where you can have fun with all the assets that are part of the library. Again, if there's a really cool feature here, so I'm just going to quickly build this out, and maybe I want to just add a glass pane in there. So one of the other tools on the side here is this box, draw custom box shapes. So I can click on that, and maybe I just want to build in a window, so I can do something like this, go down to there, click on that, and whoops, it's going in the wrong direction. Let's just try that again. Make sure I'm zoomed in, come down, click on there. Is that because I've got that switched on? Do partial selection and on contact. Go back into my box shape for a second, and I'm just going to click on that, click there. It feels like it's snapping on something, but actually what I could even do, which is even easier because it's getting lost on that axis, is go back into my plane and just reposition that plane into that window. So cool thing with this is if you grab that the center axis there, you can actually drag that around and it will snap to the various edges as well, which is kind of, again, another really nice feature for being able to do alignment and so forth. So yeah, I can just position that up. Again, if I hold down Shift, I know that it's locking to that 90 degrees. Using R, I'm just going to scale that up and then up as well. So I'm just adding in that window pane, and actually might just get rid of that. So I've got my window pane in there. And then with that, I've also got my material that's already by default assigned to that. So I can come through and play with things like the transparency of that. If I need to, I can just crank that right up. Index of refraction, if I needed to play with, that as well, depending on how thick that glass is. So I can duplicate that, bring that across, and just quickly build out this. Again, number 3, position that in there. So I'm getting something like this. And maybe I want to just add a material to the walls just quickly, just so that I can, and maybe I'm going to add something like a plaster. So I can just drag and drop that straight onto my wall. Again, I might just play with the actual repeat of that. Just put that on, whoops. Say 3, so I get something like that. And another cool feature that is part of it is like that has sort of been adopted from Photoshop is that if I hit V, oops, sorry, my phone's calling. Let's just turn that off for a sec. If I hit V and then hit I, basically I've selected this left-hand wall here, but you can see I've got my sample eyedrop picker here. So it will actually sample material. So now if I click on this wall, you can see there that it's actually taken that same material that's on there and put it across that side as well. And V, again, I'm going to select this wall, hit I, select that same material. And it's actually linked up, so any changes that I make to this base material here on this wall will actually update on these other walls as well. Maybe I want to grab some floor, don't know if they've got, grab some wood, different types of wood. So maybe I'm going to just add some wood down to the base here. And I'm going to, again, just play with the scale of that. And I might just play with the color a little bit just to knock it down and bring that color down a little bit. Again, I can sit here and tweak my materials. Roughness, I might just dial that back a little bit so it's not quite as shiny as well. So I'm just really just building out, again, with the materials. I might use same wood. Again, I'm going to just drag and drop this straight onto my desk using that same technique that I had before, where I can come through, and as long as I've got partial selection turned on, here I can go through, I can select that wood, hit I, and be able to, whoops, hit V, select that drawer. We've got the desk and draw. Second mesh. You can see we've got that. So I've got that. Maybe I'm going to just quickly add some leather to my notebook, drag and drop that down. Again, I could do something similar to that book underneath. You can see how quickly, using these base materials, I'm able to go through and just quickly just texture this stuff up, right? So, but you know, the challenge for this comp is to be able to now start playing around with some of the parameters in here and really making it your own. Again, I can just drag and drop that onto the metal. Maybe I want to have some plastic. And just drag that onto the lampshade. I don't like that one so much, but maybe I'll just use a soft, maybe I'll use a hard plastic and change the color. And I'll use the metal at the back. Group selection, do partial. And we've got our biro here. I'm just going to go back in and actually grab that hard plastic, and I'll just assign that to the pen. One of the cool features that I flicked on before was that collision. So now if I go back in and I'll just make sure group selection is on, and I can select my pen. As long as I've got collision turned on, so you can see here we've got the object, I've selected my pen, and we've got collision here as well. And I come through, I'm going to select my my notebook, make sure that's got collision on. Anything that has collision on, basically I can use this new feature which allows this natural, and I've got to have it turned on up here. Turn collision on there. So there's a couple of places that you need to have it on. This is the global sort of collision that needs to happen. And then depending on which objects you want it to collide with, I can then go through, and you can see now that it's going to collide with whatever objects that I've enabled that collision attribute to. What it does, you know, it's just kind of a nice way. It's, you know, a little bit gimmicky, but it's a nice way to be able to, you know, let things actually fall naturally. You know, sometimes you spend a lot of time just translating and moving objects around trying to get that perfect position, whereas now you can use this, you know, this kind of new feature to be able to allow things to lie naturally. Again, I can use this, and you can see how it's colliding with the book. If I go up, it's going to collide with the pen. So yeah, just a nice way to be able to start playing and positioning things. Maybe I just wanted to. Might just add black plastic to that. Oh, it's good. So that's got a base material on there already for the book. And if we look at some of the other models here, so if I go back into the modeling tab, you know, we've got this vase. I'm going to position that onto the table. I'm just going to scale that down a little bit. Oops. Again, hold that down to something like that. And we've got some foliage. I'm going to click on that, drag it onto the desk. And if I go into the foliage model, into the object, you can see here we've got a bunch of parameters again that I can change around with. Maybe I want to add more leaves to it. Maybe I want to, you know, straighten up the actual stems. I want to change, I can actually change the type of leaf, I believe, or is that in the other one? I can add branches, more or less, whatever it is, I can sort of change using all these various parameters. Again, I would come through and I can sort of, you know, position this. Maybe my vase is a bit small, so I might want to scale that up a little bit. Or is there a better one? Oh, maybe I need to scale down my foliage. That's the leaves. Do something like that. So you can sit there and just have a bit of fun with these objects. On the side here, you know, we've got all our, it's kind of like the our outliner in Maya in terms of just the models and how it's sort of structured. Got folders and you've got your geometry based inside that. So not too dissimilar. So we've got something that looks like that. Now with the foliage stuff, I can come through and I've got base materials here. So if I wanted to just use this base material to actually texture the leaves, then I can come through and start playing with this. Like I said before, we've got things like translucency, and we've got subsurface scattering as well, I believe, yeah, down here. So you can enable subsurface scattering and turn that on, and then you can start playing around with distance scatter and your colors and your various bits and pieces. Again, maybe I'll turn that up. I'm going to turn I want it fully translucent, just something like that with a bit of subsurface thrown in as well. And maybe I'll just knock down the actual specular, or the roughness a little bit. We'll turn that up. So you can sit there and start playing around with the shader. The other thing that I haven't shown you yet is the new ray tracing renderer. So up the top here of the screen, we've got ray tracing at the moment. We're just looking in our 3D viewport, real time sort of. And then if I flick on the ray tracing there, it's going to give us a really fast, quick interpretation of a ray traced render. So we're able to see exactly what our current lighting's doing, how those those leaves are acting to the changes that I made with the transparency and the subsurface, and how the shadows are falling, etc. You can play with the settings for that rendering up here. So you've got that little tab next to it, and you can change some of the sampling there as well as whether it's a high or medium or low preset that you want to use for that rendering. It's pretty quick, it's pretty powerful. It's a really great way just to be able to see what that final render is going to look like without hitting the render button. All right, so I'm not too sure how much you missed out on then, but essentially I'm just going through this scene that I'm creating and just adding those base textures to it. So again, I'm using a combination of the default ones, the ones that material, the ones that are already sort of by default being assigned as well. So yeah, just quickly go through and we can just do so, because I want to get to the lighting stage as well if we can. So I'm adding this down. Like I said, I'm grabbing some fabrics here. I'm just literally dragging and dropping them straight onto my model. Nothing crazy there. You always find that you'll probably have to change the scale of things a little bit. So I've got some denim on that. I might add what do we got here? Some sort of tweed onto the lampshade. That one's looking not too bad. I might repeat that twice. Change the scale, and again, just going through, and like I said, you can have a lot of, there's a lot of different assets in the actual model library itself. So feel free to add as many bits and pieces as you can. Like I said, you've got different models with parametric attributes there that you're able to really just tweak up and change. You've got stairs, you got all sorts of stuff. So you shouldn't be short of assets in there. And if whatever you can't find, you can use these base sort of building blocks to build from. Right, so now what I want to do is move into the next little icon at the top here. So essentially what I'm going through is these four icons up the top. We've got modeling, we've got materials, we've got lighting, and then we've got images. So if I move to the next one, which is our lighting, there's a bunch of new lights that have shipped with this version of Stager, and we've got now these physical lights, which we never used to have before, which is really, really cool. So, for example, maybe I want to grab like a point light and then just position that inside my shade here. I can do that and just, sort of replicate that light that's coming from inside that lamp. The other cool thing is these environment stages. So essentially I can drag any one of these environment stages into my viewport, and what that's going to do is it's going to set up all my lighting based off the background image, and it's also going to create a series of cameras for me. Now I think the idea with this challenge is to be able to use these light stages and use the cameras and the lights that have already been set up for you to be able to output them as your final render. So for example, maybe I want to use, actually I might even just do an environment one for this, just because I've got this, this setting here. So I can just drag and drop something like this into my viewport. And you can see that if I rotate my lights, which I'm holding shift down and right mouse by clicking, you can use that image that I've just dragged in here is actually creating that environment light for me. So what I can also do is go into the background, and I'm going to, with the ground, I'm going to just, got ground plane, I'm going to turn that off, and then background, I'm going to bring the opacity up, and I'm going to drop the blur down so we can just see that environment light kind of working in our glass, up through our glass in the back there. So again, just position some of this stuff a little bit better. Just going to move that down across at the back. So I've got my vase, I've got my scene, building this out. Now I've got my lights in there. Now I can do the ray tracing if I wanted to see how those lights are reacting. With that environment, if I want to change the intensity of that image that I'm using to light the scene, then I can come up to the top here, and you've got environment up here. And then inside that, you can see we've got the background, which is that image that we're using, and then we've got lights here. So I can literally come in and be able to change the intensity of that HDR image being used to light the scene. So yeah, I'm going through, like I said, I can control the intensity of the lighting here. I can add those point lights, I can add directional lights, I can use, some of these physical lights to be able to, really just be able to set the mood and the tone for the look that I'm going for. So that's really cool. The other way is, like I said before, is, you know, if we've got, say, and I'm just going to hide the environment stuff here. So maybe I'm looking at, and if I need to hide anything, then I can come through and you've got the little, you know, icons on the side here, which basically hide everything, and you can lock and so forth. So I'm going to keep the chair, and I'm going to just get rid of all this other stuff that I've created. And my vase, because what I wanted to show you was the actual stage lighting stuff as well. Cool. So I think we're left with our chair here, and I'm just going to get rid of that as well. So we've got our chair. I'm just going to hit F. I'm going to just actually position this guy back to the and where's my chair? For chair. I'm just going to position him back to the origin over here, and you can see what's going to happen. So hit F, move him across a bit. And what I want to do now is use these light stages just to be able to show you what it actually does. So if I just drag and drop this light stage into my viewport, it's going to go through, and like I said before, it's going to create a whole series of cameras and background for me. So I'm just going to go back to my viewport because I've lost. Oh, so it's not sitting. So what I can do with that object is actually, if I go back to my chair, if it gets lost like that, I can hit this little button, which will actually just ground it on the plane. You can see that that little icon there, I move to the ground plane just in case I lose it. So I might just move that over to here. And now if I look through my other cameras that it's created, and we have a look at those cameras, you can see here that it's created these 6 cameras here, and I can view my object now through these cameras that have got different resolutions and stuff set up. So actually, if I wanted to, I might just go back and just rotate that chair around a little bit. And I just go back to my viewport camera. I hit E, and I'm going to change that to group selection, partial selection. And hit E, and I'm just going to swing that chair around. Whoa. It's doing something funky there. Let's just click off that. And if I go back to my cameras, again, I can just still manipulate that chair as I want. So I can really start, you know, positioning and trying to get those. Maybe I want it a little bit further around as well. So it's kind of something like that. So yeah, it's created this lighting setup for me. Again, if I go back into environment, you can see now that it's using this environment lighting here to be able to light our object, and I can change some of the lighting setup here. You know, there's a whole bunch of, you know, different lights that it's created. Key lights, it's really created a whole lighting stage setup for us with that background environment. You can see my grid showing through on the bottom here. If I hit Control and then what is that, Control comma, or no, hyphen or whatever it is, it'll remove my grid so that I can do that. Now once I've kind of got my cameras, and again, if I'm not happy with this and I wanted to change the resolution, then I can click on the little resolution setting up the top here, and I can actually physically move my resolution of my film gate to be whatever I want it to be. So I'm not constrained to the resolution of these cameras. It's essentially whatever I want it to be. So, and then once those cameras are set up, then I can come up, and maybe I'm happy with my environment, I'm happy with the lighting, I'm happy with my texturing. I can then come up to my render tab up the top here, and then basically you can see I can go through and select the cameras that I want to then render out as my final output. If you wanted to do a little bit of work in Photoshop, then you can export out the PSDs as well, and that'll give you an ID mask, a depth mask, and a bunch of other sort of layers that it creates for you, exporting that out as a PSD. So, and then, you can go through it and create your renders once you're really, really happy with where it's at. Again, you've got different settings with it. So you can come up to your settings over on the left-hand side here and change the samples and resolution of what that final render is going to look like. So it's again, one other thing I wanted to show you, if I've got like a Illustrator file, I'll see if I've got one here somewhere. Maybe got an Illustrator file in demo. Sorry, I'm going to do yeah. So I've got an Illustrator file here. So part of the challenge is that you are able to use Illustrator files to be able to add details to. So I can bring this Illustrator file in and then just add it to my chair, for example, and it's going to give me an option to be able to, let me just go back into my viewport camera so I can see what I'm doing. Hit F, and you can see here that Illustrator file with that that logo's come through, and then I can position it so I can have a bit of fun with being able to use Illustrator files and so forth with adding additional detail. And I think if I believe I've got the decal here. I've got the graphic. If I click on that, you can see there I can either change it to a fill or to a decal, and I can position it however I want. So that's really useful. I thought I clicked on that. Yep. And you can see actually there's a number of different options that I have as part of this Illustrator file. So you can see that it's positioned there. But if I go into my artboard, I've got other various font styles and so forth. So it actually respects the your artboards, and you can bring in multiple artboards as part of that, which is cool. So maybe have different graffiti or whatever it may be. So you can use those Illustrator files. Yeah, what else is there? I think it really is that simple in terms of setup, texturing, adding modeling details, creating a cool environment. You can see the cameras and the lights that this is set up. So, I mean, that is kind of it. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to throw them in the chat, and hopefully it won't crash now. But yeah, throw them in the chat pod, and I can answer them for you. Yeah, really sorry about it crashing then. That's never happened to me before. So hopefully I get some sort of recording out of it. Actually, I even don't mind doing that again. It's a pretty straightforward sort of demo, and like I said, there's lots of really good online training and documentation for Stager. So if you have any questions around Stager, or even the challenge in general, then feel free to ping us on Discord, and we can answer those questions. But yeah, just have a play. Honestly, the couple of questions I had coming have been answered. Awesome, nice one, Alex. Now I just need to tweak some plant materials. Yeah, awesome. And like I said before, there are enough assets within Stager for people to be able to have a bit of fun with. We're not expecting over the top sort of craziness, but have fun with it. And yeah, that's it from me. Is there any way to save materials that you've tweaked? Yeah, like in Substance Painter, you can actually save a material. I don't think you can at this point. Alex, that's a good question, mate. I don't think you can. I haven't been able to do that. Yeah, that's a good question. If I go, I'm just going to get rid of that for a sec. If I click on my chair, I don't think you can right click or do anything like that to save it. You can add place graphic. No, I don't think you can. We don't have that option yet. But you're right. I mean, that is you can duplicate, but you can't save it. Good question. I'm going to ask about that one because that's not a bad idea. I'm sure, you know, we've got that capability in Substance Painter, so you should be able to do that at some stage. Cool. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, like I said, feel free to throw them in Discord and we can answer them in there. And yeah, good luck with the challenge. Hopefully this has been helpful. Sorry about the crashing. I've never experienced that before, but it's one thing to note, you know, using that ray tracing when you're on Zoom. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and we'll talk soon. Ciao, ciao.